close your eyes slowly. Let the air around you become hollow. The sounds dim one by one like candles quietly extinguished. You do not need to carry anything. No sound, no light. No memory of where you are now. Now, let us move backward together. Far back through centuries, built and torn down. Across eras no longer given names until we arrive in a time still living in ruins. Rome, not the Rome glittering in the minds of modern tourists, not the Rome praised in tales of imperial grandeur, not the Rome of senators or generals. We will arrive at the other side of Rome, the place never painted in gold nor sung about in verses. That is where you will spend your day today. In a narrow alley filled with stench, dampness, and voices that come from nowhere. Where stone walls rise too high and block the sky. Where sunlight visits only briefly, like a guest in a hurry. You will become one among the thousands who live in the gaps between leaning buildings, holding each other up just enough not to collapse. There is nothing noble about living here. No heroic tales. Only heavy breath, wash water running over dirt floors, and bodies pressed together in spaces too small. But do not fear. You will only be here for one day, and you will return. But before that, allow yourself to feel. Let it all in. Because this world is a part of history seldom whispered. The world of Rome's poor. The world where people were born and died without being greeted by memory. And tonight, you will be one of them. Take a deep breath. Hear the buzzing flies circling leftover food. Feel the moist heat clinging to your skin like someone else's sweat. Look around you. A baby cries. An old woman sits silently, her back curved. A small child clutches his belly in hunger. You are part of this now. A world that is crowded, weary, and too often forgotten. Let us begin. Slowly, there is no need to rush. The day will be long. Imagine you wake up one morning in the year 140 CE, when Rome stands at the height of its glory. The empire stretches wide, from the sands of Egypt to the snows of Britain. Legions are posted everywhere. Statues of the emperor rise in every great city. But you are not there. You do not live in marble houses with fountains in their atriums. You do not dine in open-air rooms facing lush gardens. You have no slave to bring you wine. You live 6 floors above the ground, inside an insula tenement built of wood, cheap bricks, and empty promises. The walls of your room are cracked, the floor tilts, and the wooden stairs in the narrow hall groan as if they will snap. There is no window, no ventilation. Only a door that never quite shuts. If you sleep too close to the wall, you wake with itching skin from mold. Too close to the center, and you risk being stepped on by someone who rose earlier. Sunlight almost never touches this space. Even air seems unwilling to enter. Below you, the 5 lower floors house wealthier tenants. They have access to water, to a bakery, even sometimes to a shared kitchen. But not you. You are too poor for the lower floors, and there are too many like you. Above you, the roof leaks when it rains. And when summer comes, heat rises like fire in a chimney. The air in your room feels like someone else's breath, full, damp, and too near. and you are not even awake yet. You still lie on a thin bed of straw, sharing the space with 3 or 4 others. There is no mattress, no privacy, just a cloth hanging weakly like a curtain. Outside, the sound of Rome is already rising cries of merchants, cartwheels, barking dogs, and roosters that never know the hour. But you have no window to see it. You can only hear it, as if the world happens without your presence. This is not the Rome from textbooks, not the Rome carved into victory arches. This is the Rome inside old buildings that may fall at any moment. But the day must begin. And you must rise, because this room never welcomes sleep longer than it must. You open your eyes slowly, not because you've had enough sleep, but because someone kicked your foot by accident. Maybe the boy who sleeps near the door, or maybe your mother who must leave earlier. There's no time to be angry, no time to complain. You simply shift your body aside, avoiding other legs lying nearby. Morning air hasn't arrived. There's nothing refreshing in this room. Only the warm smell of sweat collected overnight. The smell of breath, the smell of mold, the smell of skin. You sit up slowly. Your back is stiff from sleeping on damp straw. The brick floor beneath your feet is cold, but not a comforting cold. It's the kind of chill that comes from the belly of the earth, still and unfriendly. Outside the room, you hear footsteps on the stairs. Some descend quickly, carrying baskets, water jugs, or just searching for air. You don't hurry after them. There's no better place waiting. You rub your face with hands not yet clean, then adjust the cloth that serves as your nightwear. In the corner of the room is a water jug, but only a little remains. It's meant for drinking later, or maybe brushing teeth if there's time. In the upper parts of Rome like this, water doesn't always reach. Too expensive, too difficult, so you go down yourself, or wait, or don't drink at all. Outside, the cries of seagulls mix with the shouting of a baker. The scent of burning charcoal drifts from the kitchen windows of the wealthy. A tesa, but you have no kitchen, no oven, no anything. If you want to eat, you must go and find it. There may be no work today, but still, you have to leave. Sitting too long in this room only makes your body sticky and your mind sink. So you stand, your knees creak softly. The worn cloth you wear does little to keep out the chill, but no one notices. Everyone here is like you, trying to look busy so they don't look weak. One by one, you and the others leave the room, descending the wet, steep wooden stairs. No conversation, no smiles, just eyes avoiding each other, careful steps, and a small hope that today does not bring a new disaster. The old stairs creak beneath your feet, each step threatening to be the last. The wood is wet from dew, or maybe the urine of children during the night. The wall is crumbling. Can't see flecks of clay falling like dust that has given up. When you finally reach the ground floor, the air changes. More open, but not better. The sharp smell comes from a mix of rotting food, human waste, and wet charcoal that hasn't fully caught fire. In the alley just outside the insula, people have begun to gather. An old man with a limp sits on the ground offering a small pot of oil. Nearby, a young woman combs her child's hair with a broken wooden comb. They do not greet you. There is no need. You are nobody, and so are they. In this place, not knowing each other is the safest form of relationship. The street in front of the insula is narrow and muddy. The gutter never runs clean, always full of washwater, animal blood, and ash. Sometimes you walk in the center of the road because the edges are too foul, but that is a risk. Carts can come at any moment. There are no rules, no protection. You walk with your head slightly down, not out of fear, but because that is how not to look, too ready to be blamed. In the distance, the cries of vegetable sellers ring out. Nothing is fresh. Nothing is fragrant. Just leftovers from the villas sold in still damp baskets. You cannot afford them. You have no coin today. So you keep walking past rows of small shops selling oil, cheap wine, and yesterday's hard bread. Every scent is piercing, not because it tempts, but because it is too close to rot. A skinny dog passes in front of you, chewing on a bone likely pulled from a pile of market refuse. A small child stands still, her face dirty, staring at you with eyes that expect nothing. You keep walking, still mourning, but you're already tired. Tired not from burden, but from knowing that nothing in this day belongs to you. Even your steps feel borrowed from soil that offers no welcome. But still, you walk, because standing still only lets the city forget you faster. You walk with no clear destination, as usual. Rome is vast, yet not a single corner truly opens itself to you. The streets around Subura are full of noise and motion. Here, the poor are packed tightly together, between cheap wine shops, public baths, and brothels clinging to walls like mold. You walk toward the Forum not because you are welcome there, but because sometimes there are small chances near that place. A stonemason needing a hand, a porter missing a grip, or a spice shop short of help. Along the way, you see people like you sitting silently, waiting for something that rarely comes. A man with a scarred face leans against a wall, staring into nothing. A woman holding a baby wrapped in ragged cloth stands at a corner, pleading to anyone who passes. No one answers. No one looks. You know the unspoken rule of this city. The less you speak, the better your chances of surviving. You pass a young man offering to wash people's sandals with gutter water. Few are interested. Everyone walking this road has their own burdens. You approach a small market on the edge of the Esquiline Hill. A fish vendor is unloading crates. You come closer. You ask if he needs help. He doesn't look at you, just shakes his head. Maybe you're too skinny, too quiet, or someone else came before you. You don't get angry. You don't feel disappointed, 'cause you're used to it. A day without work is not strange, but it still hurts. Not because you're lazy, but because you've never been visible enough to be trusted. You keep walking. Maybe by noon, a bakery will need a runner. Maybe someone will need an extra pair of hands to push a cart. Or maybe today will offer nothing. That possibility has long lived beside you. But you must not sit still, because stillness only hastens hunger. So you keep moving from alley to alley, from one rejection to the next silence. Rome is busy, dense, noisy. But to you, the city remains quiet, because not a single voice in that crowd knows your name. Your stomach begins to speak, not loudly, but with a soft friction you know well. Hunger is not an event here. It is a backdrop. Like the constant noise of the city, like the dust that never leaves your skin, you don't hope for a good meal. You don't even hope for fullness. You only want something heavy enough to keep you from collapsing on the street. You approach the market not as a buyer, but as a scavenger. People like you know when scraps begin to fall, when wilted vegetables are tossed from baskets, when fish bits are too small to sell, when bread is too hard to chew. You stand a little away from the stalls, your eyes sharp, but your face calm. You must not look too hungry. That might push you away. You wait for an old vendor who sometimes lets onion skins or vegetable ends drop carelessly. Today, he seems faster in his cleaning. You're lucky. A rotting lettuce core is thrown to the ground. You wait a few seconds, then walk toward it slowly, not running, not stealing, just taking what is no longer wanted. You wrap it in the scrap of cloth you carry. Today, you have a little green. Maybe later, there will be crumbs of bread. Around another corner, a small boy stands, chewing what remains of an apple only its skin. You don't bother him, because you know that boy is surviving too. A woman pours leftover washing water into the gutter, and you smell the faint scent of soap, reminding you more of winter than of cleanliness. Soap in this place is rarer than the smell of blood. You walk to the old cheese shop by the edge of the market. Sometimes, if lucky, the owner lets people take the spoiled milk pulp that gathers at the base. Today, he doesn't appear. Maybe he's sick. Or maybe he's tired of it all. You don't wait. You know that if you hope too long, you'll lose the strength to walk. So you sit for a while by the side of the road, sharing the rotten lettuce with an old man who says little. You don't ask each other's names. No one says thank you. In this place, sharing isn't generosity. It's the quietest form of survival left. The sun rises higher, and the heat from the stone streets begins to seep into your feet. You know the day is still long, and your body is not strong enough to meet it. But that's normal, because there has never been a morning in this city that truly promises a better afternoon. Your steps take you to a street slightly wider, a road that leads toward the district where the elites live. In this place, the walls rise taller, the paint looks brighter, and the air smells different. Not because it's truly clean, but because old smells are not allowed in. You stand beneath the shadow of a large building with small glass windows, a luxury you've never touched. Through an open window, you see a wide wooden table. Upon it, bowls of wine, round loaves of bread, and fruits whose names you've never even spoken. A small girl sits with a clean, thin dress, her hair braided neatly. Beside her, an older female slave combs her hair gently. The girl laughs. Not because something is funny, but because that's what she does when given attention. You don't feel envy. Not anymore. Envy takes energy. You just look, then walk again. You know you'll never be part of that table, and no door will ever open to invite you inside. On the same street, a man in clean clothes steps out of a marble-covered stone house. He spits on the ground without looking. His spit nearly hits your foot. He doesn't stop. You don't speak. You just step back half a pace, then keep walking. Behind you, the door closes softly, like a world that was never truly open. You know, inside, they talk about things far from hunger. They talk about politics, about performances, about money that grows like vines. Meanwhile, you speak to your stomach, calming a pain that never really leaves. From time to time, you see slaves from these big houses carrying large pots filled with kitchen waste. You know, sometimes scraps from those pots end up in the hands of someone quick enough. But today, you don't want to fight for it. Today, you just want to keep standing. You move on, back to the narrow streets, to where everyone looks equally gray. At the end of the lane, you see a man sleeping beneath a stone stairway. His head rests on his arm, his body still. You don't know if he's alive, but no one stops to check. Not even you. The sun reaches its highest point, and your shadow shrinks beneath your feet. The streets grow quieter, not because the city rests, but because people like you begin to disappear. There is no truly public space for those without coin. Even shade can be a privilege one must fight for. You walk slowly, tracing the edges of buildings, searching for a patch of shadow long enough to at least protect your head. You spot the stone stairs leading to a public bath, but you don't enter. Not just because of the fee, but because they won't allow a body like yours to stain their water. You know your place. Behind a wall, there's a gap between two shop houses just wide enough for you to sit. You slip in, crouch, and lean against the rough stone. Around you, the air is thick with the smell of wet lime, rat droppings, and cheap smoke. But that doesn't drive you away. Here, at least, you can be still. The sun doesn't strike your face directly. That's enough. You close your eyes, not to sleep. You never truly sleep during the day, but just enough to let your thoughts drift. In your mind, you try to recall the sound of a river. Not the Tiber, thick with metal and waste, but the river in your childhood memories. When the world wasn't this harsh and water wasn't drowned out by market noise. But even that memory doesn't last long. Quick footsteps pass near you, and you open your eyes again. A city guard walks by with a wooden staff in hand. You lower your head. There's no rule against sitting here, but no protection either. You know, if he wanted to move you, no one would stop him. But he keeps walking. You remain silent. In the distance, a small bell rings, perhaps from a cake vendor's cart, selling sweets to the children of villas. You don't turn. You know the sound, but not the taste. Too sweet for a world like this. You stay seated, letting the afternoon drift above your head like a river of time you can never hold. And for a few minutes, you don't walk. You don't speak. You simply endure. That is all. As the sun begins to slide from above and the shadows of buildings stretch once again, you rise slowly. Your body resists, but you have no choice. Sitting too long only makes you weaker. You know these hours are your final chance to find something. Evening in Rome is not a time of rest. It is the final hour of foraging. People begin to emerge from their places of work. Some carry bags of bread. Others hold bruised fruit. Some walk quickly. Others slowly, like you. But their steps are lighter, because they know there will be dinner. You walk again, passing by a market being dismantled. The sound of hammers and wood echoes as vendors drop the shutters of their stalls. Some leave behind vegetable scraps on the roadside. You walk slowly, observing, but without looking like you are. You find an onion peel still fresh, a piece of radish too small to sell, and a puddle of salty fish water just spilled. It's not much, but enough to offer a whisper of hope. Beneath an empty market table, you spot a stray cat watching you. Its eyes are tired, its body thin, and you realize you are not so different. You don't chase it, you don't approach. You just look at it for a moment, then walk on. You near a bakery that seems to have just finished its last batch. Through the door gap, you smell warm flour, salt, and yeast. The scent stabs not because it's pleasant, but because your body instantly responds with a deep ache. A small child exits carrying a basket of bread, and you lower your gaze. Not from shame, but because you have nothing to offer as a reason to be given a piece. That bread is not yours. Even the scent is not your right. You return to the street. The light dims. The crowd's thin. But you know you cannot go home yet, because returning with nothing means facing the dark wall and hearing your own stomach speak until morning. You keep walking, not with hope, but with necessity. Because even if no one is waiting for you, you must still return with something, anything. The sky begins to lose its color. Not black yet, but a dull gray that promises nothing. The last sunlight flickers between rooftops and windows, a reluctant glimmer. You know this moment is a threshold. Beyond it, the city changes. Beyond it, the danger isn't only hunger, but other people. You take a deep breath, saving the last of your strength for the journey back. Not far, but still exhausting. Your legs feel heavy, like walking through invisible mud. You pass again through narrow alleys, where shadows now outnumber light. In front of a shuttered pottery shop, a man sits with a wound on his cheek, hugging his knees with closed eyes. You don't ask what happened. You know the answer wouldn't differ from your own. In the next lane, an old woman sweeps dust from her doorway, not out of cleanliness, but from habit. Her hands tremble, but they still move. You pass them all, and finally reach your place. Not a house, not a room. Just a space between a wall and a stairway, dark enough to be forgotten, wide enough to lie down. There you sit. Your body leans against the cold stone. You unwrap the scrap cloth that holds the days, finds a rotten leaf, a crust of hard bread, and a little water in a broken shell. You don't eat with appetite. There's no taste, only slow movements, so your stomach stops crying. In the distance, you hear laughter from the houses on the hill. Laughter that never reaches here. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, just not to see reality for a while. Night comes slowly, but it always comes. The air grows colder, and your body begins to shiver, but there's no blanket. Only your body and a wall that never warms. You lie down slowly, adjusting your limbs to lessen the pain. Outside, the city keeps moving, but you are done moving today. And like the days before, you fall asleep not because you're tired, because there is nothing else left to do. Night arrives fully, not as a gentle curtain, but as a heavy fog that erases the line between what is real and what must be feared. Footsteps echo in the distance, a soft threat. A rat scurries along the wall, its sound louder than the laughter heard earlier in the day. In your cramped and cold space, you do not speak. No one speaks at hours like this, because words might attract the wrong ears. A few floors above, someone coughs harsh and long, maybe lung rot, maybe just too much dust. But the coughing doesn't stop. Then silence. Too much silence. And you know not everyone will wake up tomorrow. From an open window, the smoke of old cooking charcoal descends like poison mist, slipping into the cracks of buildings already broken. The air grows heavy, and you breathe slowly, trying not to cough, trying to stay calm. Some small children are still awake, soft giggles drifting into the night, followed by a mother's harsh whisper telling them to be quiet. Maybe they don't yet know that the night here does not like noise. A dog barks, then a shout, then silence again. Everything happens so quickly, like a dream you didn't want. You curl tighter, pressing against the wall, hoping this night passes without someone prying open your eyes. In the distance, a door slams. Maybe a thief, maybe a city guard. There's no way to be sure. But you know it's safer to pretend to sleep than to find out. And in that moment, you realize this place was never made for rest. It was only made to keep you breathing just long enough until you forget how to wish. Your body shakes. Not just from cold, but from a fear that settles deep into your bones. You don't cry. No tears left. Just stillness and a small, wordless prey. Quiet hope to survive the night unseen. The hours before dawn are the heaviest. The world grows quieter, but not calmer. Silence here carries a deeper threat. Your body begins to surrender, gently slipping into drowsiness. Yet you know well that sleep is a gamble. No one guarantees you will wake up. A few nights ago, an old man was found dead, his hands still clutching a rag, his body blue from the cold. No one knows when he stopped breathing. No one really sees one another here. Among the slums and narrow alleys, life does not move. It only waits to end. Curled up, your muscles loosen, but your mind stays sharp. You hear wood creak. Maybe it is just the building shrinking in the cold. Maybe it is a quiet step from someone who doesn't want to be heard. In your narrow room, air does not move. There is no window, no vent, just your own breath reflecting back from damp walls. The stench from the public toilets and open gutters seems to seep into your skin. You try to breathe through your mouth, but even that makes you sick. Then a noise from below. Maybe a child crying, maybe furniture falling, or maybe something worse. But you do not move, because here, even movement is a kind of mistake. Darkness seeps into you not, like the night outside the city with stars and breeze. This is dusty darkness. Thick, it clings to you. You do not dream. In a place like this, dreams do not come. Only fragments of memory drift by your mother's voice from childhood. A lost friend's face, the memory of warm food and a hand once holding yours. These come not to comfort, but to torment. You know, reality would be easier if you forgot it all. But tonight will not let you forget. It only allows you to survive, breath by breath, until the sky begins to change, and you wait. Not because you want the new day, but because you want this night to end. There is no rooster crowing, no golden light slipping gently through windows, because your window is just a small hole covered with a damp cloth. Morning in the insulate never truly feels like morning. It arrives reluctantly, like a fog that refuses to lift, like a weight you cannot shake off your back. You open your eyes not because you've rested enough, but because the sounds outside are waking. The water cellar shouting, the creaking of wooden carts against stone, a baby crying from the next room. Your breath is heavy. Your body aches and is still cold, even as the air begins to warm. On the ceiling, a spider's web sways gently in the stale draft leaking through the cracked walls. You sit up, not from energy, but out of habit. The smell of the night still lingers in the room, mixed with the odor of your own sweat. There is no clean water to wash your face. You wipe it with a rag dipped in the same bucket used to wash feet the day before. It feels cold and sour. But this is how the day begins. No calming ritual, no warm tea, no moment for reflection. Just a body that rises because it must, and steps that begin because there is no other choice. You peek outside. The lower floor is already crowded. People slip past each other into narrow alleys, looking for work or food. A child cries after tripping on a stone. An old man coughs blood onto the ground, and no one stops. No one even looks. This is where you live, in the heart of a city called the center of the world, but it feels like the center of nothing. Your home sits inside an empire that writes poetry and builds monuments, but you've never read a line and never seen a temple up close. You only know the sour smell of a damp room and the metallic taste of contaminated water. This is morning in Rome for those who have nothing. A morning that forces the body to move before it remembers why it should endure. Your job isn't written on a contract. There is no wooden desk for your name, no pen, no promise. You work wherever someone is willing to take you that day. Sometimes you haul water from the well for nobles. Sometimes you clean animal waste from the streets near the forum. The pay is never enough for dinner, but more than enough to keep you chained. Today you're sent to help carry cargo crates from the harbor. Anyone strong and still able to stand is called. No one cares who you are, what your name is, or why you stumble from a night spent on stone. The road to the harbor is slick and wet. The stench of spoiled fish fills the air before the sun even rises. You walk alongside a dozen others, all with backs bent before 30. No one talks, only grunts and heavy breathing. Between narrow alleys and towering walls, you see that Rome was built to impress, but not for you. Each time you pass a grand gate or marble statue, you feel no pride. Only look for a shadow where you might rest for a second. At the docks, you are handed a rope. One crate must be lifted to a cart. It needs 3 people. One rope is already frayed on the left. But you cannot refuse. Sweat pours even though the sun is still low. Your shoulders ache, arms tremble. And you haven't eaten anything this morning but stale bread saved from the night before. Your face shows no frustration, because nothing changes if you're angry. This is the life you've inherited. Not from fault, but from existence. You were born into this, into walls already damp before you could walk. And now you stand on the docks, lifting the cargo of the wealthy who will never see your face, who will never know that the hand carrying their goods is already bleeding beneath the nails. Time moves slowly. Every hour is a quiet punishment. And you know, before the sun truly leans west, you'll drag your feet back to a home better described as a hole. But you don't stop. Not from hope, but because your body already knows. If you stop, you disappear. The sun finally climbs high, but it does not bring comfort. It burns, piercing through the gaps in clay roofs, stinging skin that's been exposed too long. There's no real shade at the harbor. Shadows move too quickly, never wide enough for a whole person. You wipe your sweat with a sleeve already soaked, but the drops keep running from your temples down your neck. Your back aches, and you must keep moving because overseers hate stillness. There is no lunch break. Only leftover bread and maybe a slice of salty cheese if you're lucky. But today, you brought nothing. This morning, the public kitchen ran out. You saw a small child steal a rotten piece of fruit from a cart and get hit by the vendor's stick. No one reacted. No one laughed. No one cried. The child just ran, clutching their belly, disappearing among the stone pillars. Around you, everyone works with heads bowed. No questions, only tasks and clipped orders. Shoulders bump without apology. Hands fight over ropes. Eyes never really meet. The sharp clang of metal shouted commands in rough Latin, and the splash of harbor water echo against the buildings. The sounds of Rome are not beautiful. They do not sing of life. They creak, bark, and pressure every creature within to keep walking, keep working, until the final breath. You inhale deeply, hoping for clean air, but all you draw in is dust, sweat, and a salty sting from the sea. You glance up at the sky. Its blue blinds you and feels impossibly distant. The world beneath your feet feels like some other version of reality, like a place God forgot when making justice. Time freezes in exhaustion. This noon doesn't pass quickly. It watches you, like the eyes of a God that does not care. You grab the rope again, lift the same weight, take the same steps. No variation, no surprise. Only endless repetition until you forget when your body started feeling like a machine with no choice. By late afternoon, your steps slow. Every footfall feels like dragging a stone. Your muscles no longer resist, they obey reluctantly, almost lifelessly. Dust clings to your skin and hair, mixing with sweat and forming a layer of grime you can't wash off. Your body feels wrapped in sticky fog, and your breath no longer fills your chest. It's heavy in there, not because of the weight you carry, but because the air never gives relief. Near the market, a drain has overflowed. Black water moves sluggishly, carrying leftover food, human waste, and dead rats. There are no working sewers in this part of the city. You smell it before you see it. The stench crawls up your nose, thick and sour. People around you are not bothered. They're used to it. So are you. The smell is part of the day now. Amid the crowd, an old woman sits against a wall, her eyes blank, hands searching the ground for crumbs. No one stops. In Rome, hunger is ordinary. It's not tragedy, it's routine. You pass her like everyone else. Not because you're cruel, but because you don't have enough yourself. Indifference is survival. You haven't eaten today, and there's still one last load to move before the sun drops. There's shouting in the distance. A plate shatters. A brief scream. If you don't look, you know it's not your business. Maybe a family quarrel. Maybe a theft. Maybe a death. But it's all just part of the background noise of this city. You keep walking past peeling walls, warped wooden doors, and narrow stairs leading to overcrowded rental homes. Those stairs often collapse, and no one really fixes them. Every day, someone falls from the third or fourth floor, not always dead, but often never walking again. There's no compensation, no pity. People live in buildings not meant to be homes, but they have no choice, just like you. Evening slips into dusk without warning. The sky was never truly bright, but now it turns into a dark gray, swallowing the last colors of the city. You're still walking, but now your steps are more cautious. Not because you're afraid of getting lost, but because you know who usually comes out after the sun fades. The children who played in the narrow alleys have vanished. Doors are shut. Only a few scattered sounds remain. In the corners of streets, shadows start to shift. Some belong to night workers. Some are just looking for scraps of survival. But you know, others search for darker opportunities. In this city, theft doesn't shock anyone. Violence isn't always intentional, but it's often unavoidable. You recognize the faces you should avoid staring at. They see you too, reading your movement, weighing what they might take. You quicken your pace without running. Running makes you look like prey. Calm but alert is your best bet to reach home whole. Along the road, a few oil lamps flicker on, but they're too few. Their light barely stretches beyond a few steps. The night has a different scent. Sharper than daytime, heavier. Garbage rots faster without sun. And though the air is cool, it doesn't move. Smoke from tiny kitchens and coal fires hangs in the air, trapped between high walls with nowhere to go. You take short breaths and keep walking. A man ahead stops and turns. His face is unfamiliar. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't approach either. You size each other up in silence. After a few seconds, he turns and slips into a narrow alley. You wait before moving. Small tensions like this are common. Not every encounter ends badly, but you can't ignore your alertness. When you reach the main road, you feel a little safer. Not calm, but enough to ease your shoulders. You're not far from home. But in this city, even home doesn't always mean safety. Finally, you reach your door. A frail wooden door, long stripped of its original color. Its hinges creak as you open it, but you're used to it. No one welcomes you except for the damp smell that hangs in the air. This small room is everything. Bedroom, kitchen, and dining area all pressed into one space barely larger than a livestock stall. The ceiling is low. In summer, the air feels unbreathable. In winter, cold seeps through the gaps in the rotting wood. You close the door gently and sit on the only remaining stool. The walls are thin. There's hardly any space between you and the noise of your neighbors. From the right, a baby cries endlessly. From the left, soft arguments between a couple, likely counting coins that won't be enough. The floor beneath you shakes whenever someone walks down the outside corridor. This house wasn't built for comfort. It's just enough to keep you off the streets. The roof leaks when it rains. The walls weep when snow melts. But you've lived here long enough to close your eyes without too much fear. Every night, before lying down, you check the back wall. Sometimes there are new cracks. A few weeks ago, a chunk of the ceiling fell onto the mat. Luckily, you weren't sleeping there. No repairs, no workers. Everyone just waits, hoping the floor won't collapse by morning. Dinner is simple. A piece of hard bread soaked in salted water just to make it chewable. If you're lucky, there's a little leftover olive oil. You eat slowly, not out of pleasure, but because there's nothing else left. There's no clean water at home. You must collect it from the street or pay someone to bring it. Night in this city is long. No entertainment, no lighting. Just you, damp walls, and foreign sounds beyond the window that never quite closes. But you try. You lie down, close your eyes, and hope there's no fire tonight, no rats on the mat, and maybe the neighbors won't argue for too long. Night is not a time to sleep, but a time to keep watch. In the insula where you live, darkness never means silence. The thin wood and stone walls don't block sound, nor smell. The night brings with it the stench of overflowing sewers, mixed with urine and sour wine. Footsteps run through the lower hallway, sometimes followed by a short scream that vanishes quickly, replaced by a silence more terrifying than noise. Sometimes a door slams. Sometimes a child cries out from sleep. Then quiet again. You try to pull your thin blanket, but the air is too thick. There's no ventilation, and the window is too small. The stagnant air sticks to your skin, and sweat gathers even though you don't move. Rats scurry in the corners. You know because you hear the soft scratch of their claws. You don't light a fire. Wood is too expensive, and smoke has nowhere to go. It would only burn your lungs. Your upstairs neighbor sometimes drops things. Ash, dishwater. Sometimes a pot slips from a windowsill. Not on purpose, but still dangerous. People have died from falling objects, because insulae can rise 5, 6, even 7 stories high, built without standards or planning. You still remember last week, the building at the end of the block collapsed at night. It sounded like an avalanche. 5 people buried. 2 of them were children. No one said a word. There was no help, no talk of it. Everyone knew it could be their building next week. When you look up at your ceiling, you don't know if it will still be there by morning. Sleeping on a night like this is an act of courage or absolute exhaustion, because you don't hope for dreams. You only hope for an intact morning. When the sky starts to pale, you realize your building didn't collapse during the night. Part of you feels relieved. Another part feels disappointed. You're still alive. And life means going through the same day again. The first step is finding water. There's no faucet at home, no running pipes. You have to go down with a jar or jug. Walk to a public fountain that might be 2 blocks away. There, you wait in line with old women, slaves, and children. Sometimes the water flows. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's clear. But often it's murky, mixed with dirt, or foul-smelling. But it's your only option. You fill your jar while your eyes remain half-closed. Then return home, climbing the rotting wooden stairs that creak and crack with every step. You worry one day it will be the final crack. At home, you splash your face with cold water. No soap, just a damp cloth to wipe off dirt. Then you sit still for a few minutes, maybe longer than you should, delaying the day's labor. There's no breakfast except last night's hardened bread wrapped in cloth. You chew it slowly, not for taste, but to fool your stomach into feeling fuller. 1 sip of water, 2 deep breaths, and you stand. The day begins. You're not a slave, but you're not far from one. Your wage comes by the day from jobs that are never certain. Pushing carts, washing laundry, carrying stones, cleaning streets, hauling animal carcasses from the market. Whatever pays today. And not everyone pays. Sometimes you're threatened, sometimes yelled at, but you stay quiet. Because voice is not a right for someone like you. Because anger only brings more pain. You just want to get through the day, and maybe still return home by nightfall. The sun climbs without mercy, and the narrow streets around the insula begin to fill with sounds. Merchants shouting. Cartwheels slamming against paving stones in a harsh rhythm. The cries of a slave being dragged by their master. Endless footsteps. Heat clings to the walls. Whether you work outside or indoors, your body is soaked in sweat. There is no truly cool shade. Even the shadows feel hot. You push heavy loads, clean up rotting food scraps in the market, drag sacks filled with horse dung. No protective gear, no thick shoes. Just worn fabric wrapped around your feet and limbs. Every few minutes you have to stop, bow your head, close your eyes. Not just from exhaustion, but because you want to feel gone for a moment. Around you, people live the same way. Few speak. No one jokes. The faces you see are like broken mirrors, cracked by poverty, by dust, by dreams that never took root. Sometimes you see small children sitting by the street, drawing in the dirt with their fingers. No toys, no school. They grow up among the noise and heavy air. Maybe you were like that once. Maybe you sat in that same place 20 years ago. Now you stand above it, carrying heavier burdens and thinner hopes. In the crowd, you sometimes hear someone coughing deeply. Not all coughs heal. Many don't. You see an old woman sitting with her head bowed, mouth open, breathing hard. She doesn't work anymore, but she has no home. Maybe she won't wake up tonight. No one will call her name. no one will cry. And as you walk again, you know the only thing separating you from her is a few years and one bad sickness. And the sky remains blue, and the sun keeps shining. Nothing changes. As the sun moves downward, shadows grow longer, but the heat hasn't truly left. The air remains stifling and dusty, and the breath you take feels like it's been filtered through a dirty cloth. The streets are still crowded. Some begin returning to their insula, carrying stale bread or spoiled vegetables, scavenged or bought cheap at the market. Not everyone will have dinner. Some will only drink water and sleep. But before sleep, there is still work. Washing your body as best as you can, rinsing clothes in shared murky water, or picking lice from your child's hair. You're too tired to speak much. Each sentence feels heavy. Some people sit on the narrow steps, leaning against the wall, eyes closed, even as noise continues around them. On the ground floor, two men argue over whose turn it is for the water bucket. Upstairs, a child cries endlessly with stomach pain. His mother can only hold him. There's no medicine, no money. While you sit briefly, your toes throb and your heels are cracked. But you can't rest long. Tomorrow will be the same. You look at the sky, the dull orange stretching like news that came too late. There is nothing beautiful in the Roman sky when you know tomorrow will begin from the same point, again and again. Behind the narrow windows of the insula, the voices of the weary blend together. Some sigh deeply, some whisper complaints, some say nothing. You hear it all and feel that it is your own voice too. Time offers no mercy. It only moves forward, dragging your body along with it. Night in the insula is not a quiet embrace. It arrives with dampness, foul odors, and creeping sounds that show no mercy. The brick walls retain the heat of the day, releasing it slowly as darkness falls, turning the cramped room into a furnace that refuses to cool. There is no air circulation. The windows are too small, and if opened, they bring only the noise of the street. Some try to sleep sitting up, just to breathe a little easier. Others lie down even though their backs press against the bare, hard floor. Children curl up, not from comfort, but from the bites of insects or rats searching for crumbs. In the corner, water drips from damp walls, and you know it's not rain. It's a broken pipe or a crack that no one repairs. Outside, an old woman sings softly, her voice breaking like memories no one wants. Someone coughs endlessly in the next room. No one asks if they're sick. No one can help, even if they knew. The air grows more suffocating. You try to close your eyes, but your stomach is empty and the voices in your head are louder than the world outside. The smell of urine, spoiled food, and sweat becomes one. You don't know if the night will pass quickly or too slowly. There is no time for dreams. Only shallow breaths and a wish for morning. But even that is not true hope. Because you know, morning brings no salvation, only repetition. Beneath the cracked ceiling, you hear rats running. Perhaps they too are just trying to survive, just like you. Eventually, drowsiness strikes. Not out of comfort, but because the body gives in. Your eyes close like heavy curtains pulled by long-buried exhaustion. But your sleep is not deep. It comes and goes, fractured like a glass teetering on the edge of a table. Your breaths are shallow. Sometimes you wake up from dreams that have no form, only feelings of sinking or falling. The floor beneath you is cold. You pull your legs in to stay less stiff, but the tight space makes the motion pointless. In the distance, you hear footsteps on the rooftop. Maybe someone walking, or maybe just a large rat. You don't care. The smell in the room grows thicker. Someone has wet themselves in the corner. No one is angry. Everyone knows it could be any of them. A child sobs softly. His mother is too tired to soothe him. Sleep in the insula is not a refuge. It is just a pause in awareness, and even that pause is never full. You may dream, but you don't remember. You only know time keeps moving. Your back aches. Your skin is damp. Your hair clings with stale air. And in all of that, you begin to understand that you are never fully awake and never truly asleep. You only live in the in-between. Like light that never fully shines, and darkness that never fully arrives. The sky outside remains dark, but time has shifted. These nameless hours stretch like a vast emptiness. There's no crowing rooster, no sign that morning will arrive gently. Inside the insula, night is not just time, it is a state. A thick fog that seeps into the bones. You hear someone coughing persistently. A dry, piercing cough that won't stop becomes the rhythm of a body slowly giving up. Someone tries to cover the person's mouth with their hand, not out of care, but because everyone wants sleep. There is no kindness in the gesture, only collective exhaustion. Another person tries to go outside to relieve themselves, but the door is hard to open. Its hinges are nearly gone. Outside, the corridor is pitch black. The floor slick with something you cannot tell if it's rainwater or another fluid. They step uncertainly, then return inside paler than before. The air in the room has become stale breath repeated too many times. There is no window to let the wind in, only walls that store dampness and mold. In the middle of all this, you realize the night here never truly ends. When the sun rises, it will only change the color, not your life. And you know this calmly. You do not resist. You remain quiet, like everyone around you. Quiet in a space that ages too fast, and hope that has dissolved into the floor. The wall behind your back feels alive. It is cold, damp, and seems to breathe. Sometimes it feels like you're not leaning on it, but it's the wall slowly swallowing you. Your eyes open briefly. There is no clear shape, only shadows and dull lines of wooden boards and crumbling bricks, like viewing the world from the bottom of a well. Night in the insula is not an ordinary night. It is a space without time. You don't know what hour it is. There's no clock, no sign, no real difference between dream and wakefulness. The people around you don't move. Maybe they are asleep. Maybe they are just still. Or maybe no longer breathing. But you don't check. There's no point. Your breath merges with the scent of the wall. Your body absorbs the same air shared by dozens of mouths and lungs. No sound comes from outside. The grand city of Rome with its thousands of torches and market voices, now feels absent. You're not even sure that city exists. All you know is this insula, this room, this wall. The wall that peels and stares back into your life. You hear a voice in your head, not loud, but like a murmur from deep in the earth. Perhaps it's just hunger. Perhaps this is the edge between awareness and starvation. But you know one thing, the night is not over. And when morning comes, it will not save you. It will only continue something you cannot change. You take a short breath, and the wall remains cold. Unmoving, unchanging, yet always near. Like a feeling you can never truly name. Light arrives slowly, not a warm or freeing light. Just a pale gray seeping through the cracks in the boards and the splits in the roof. It doesn't banish the dark, only dissolves it into another form. The air remains heavy, thick with moisture and stale breath from the night before. You open your eyes, but your body stays still. Morning in the insula doesn't rouse anyone with energy. Morning is only a transition, not a beginning. There are no roosters crowing, no dew. Just the sound of feet dragging across the floor, coughing from a dark corner, and unfinished snores. You sit up slowly. Your muscles feel empty of strength. In the corner, a child whimpers quietly. No one turns. Crying isn't an event here. It's part of the background noise. You glance toward a small window or something like one. The light outside is no brighter than fading fire. The world beyond seems frozen. Not by snow, but by hunger, fatigue, and repetition. A cart rolls by in the distance. Not a sign of life, just another part of the cycle. You know what you have to do today, not because you want to, but because there is no choice. Morning in Rome does not begin with poetry or promise. It begins with the same feeling as night, emptiness. You rise, not with freshness, but because everyone else is moving. No time to think, no room to question. You are just one of thousands. And today is no different from yesterday. You inhale deeply, then exhale without a sound. Morning light carries no answers, only brighter hours for the same burdens. And at last, night returns. Not as a surprise, but as a shadow that never truly left. Light fades not, slowly like dusk across an open field, but like a candle smothered from lack of air. Inside the insula, there's no celebration for the end of a day. No family dinner. No warm conversations at a wooden table. Only bodies curling back to the floor. Two straw that is no longer dry. Two blankets that no longer fight the cold. You lie down, not from exhaustion, but because there is simply nothing left to do. Your stomach might still be empty. Your skin still damp with sweat and dust. But night doesn't wait for your readiness. It arrives as always, and you accept it as always. Outside, the wind carries faint voices. Someone is shouting, maybe drunk, maybe hungry, maybe grieving. No one knows. No one checks. Inside, silence prevails. Not from peace, but from a shared fatigue that speaks louder than words. You close your eyes. The smell of wet walls fills your breath. And the small sounds of those dreaming or murmuring nearby make you feel submerged in something larger than loneliness. Maybe you dream. Maybe you don't. It doesn't matter, because your sleep is not rest. It is only a pause from a reality that will return in the same shape tomorrow. And in that blur between darkness and breath, you may forget you are still here. You may think you have left, but your body remains held by the cold floor, the fragile roof, the city that does not know your name. And Rome, in all its grandeur, endlessly rewritten by history, does not leave space to remember you. You are only one shadow among thousands. The night folds everything without pause, without resolution, only silence.